The dark night enveloped everything. Crows flew upward with loud cries. A strong wind shook the trees. The ground was pierced by the hands of the dead who were trying to break free. A forest of terrible hands protruded from the ground. Do you want to achieve that miracle? A bright flame rose above his hand, strong and scalding by its mere appearance. The dream to annihilate all of us. A horrible monster with 4 arms that looked like a druid was in front of her in the bright light of the night moon. But dreams only come true at a cost. Her eyes were covered by her hair, and her face reflected emptiness, but the fire still burned in her hand. Time seemed to freeze in that moment. The monster looked down at her, but she only looked into the flames. All her attention was on him, the crowded arms of demons, and the dead stretched out around them. You have to pay for its flaming price. Her face was unperturbed, and it seemed nothing could distract her from her goal. She continued to stare at the flames. "I have nothing left," she shouted, squeezing the flame in her hand. The flames began to envelope her hand. "I have nothing to give in return." A bright flash lit up everything around her. It was fire that burst out through her hand, as if burning her from the inside out. She saw the fire begin to cover her entire body. Flame needs firewood. In a second, she was covered in flames, and the fire was burning her whole body. She screamed, "Flame burns everything!" Its owner is no exception. The monster watched nonchalantly as she burned and shrieked, thinking it was over, and the fire was about to consume her without a trace. Her screams pierced the whole place. It seemed to be the end. The hordes of monsters whose arms were sticking out of the ground were almost completely out of the ground and could only stare at everything, covering their horrible faces from the heat that came from her. The terrible flames were already covering her completely, and even the area around her. But suddenly the demon heard her voice. "How can I not know this?" she said. The demon listened intently, and she started to speak, leaning on the ground. "My friends, family, and even my life, you demons have taken everything from me without a trace." Her words were filled with anger and determination like never before. "I will gladly serve as food for the flames. It is my will. Demons are creatures over which time has no power, and people are not able to fight them back." A strong wind curled between the ruined houses. Their windows shattered, and their walls and roofs broken, as if a violent storm had just blown through. Smoke and dust rose up with the spurts of wind and flew far away. Suddenly, a loud noise made the ground shake, and the noise spread throughout the neighborhood. It was the footsteps of a huge ragdoll demon named Gideon. The monster bent down to the ground where the little boy was sitting and said, "You are hiding well, like a rat." The child's face reflected terror and fear of impending doom. He felt utterly powerless, and drops of sweat ran down his forehead and cheeks. The demon grabbed the poor boy with a sudden movement of his huge hand. The boy cried out in a piercing scream. "Mommy, Daddy, please help me! Somebody help me, please!" The demon mockingly asked the boy. "God, you still don't give up and cling to your pathetic life. Do you think that if you scream and cry like a baby, someone will be able to save you? However, if there are those among the people who can perform miracles, they will definitely survive and become worthy rivals of evil." "Of course," came from behind the demon. The demon turned around and asked, "Who's that there? Have the other cockroaches come to the boy's rescue?" The smoke and dust in the air was clearing, and the demon saw a girl among the ruins. In her hands was an axe. The girl replied, "It doesn't matter at all who I am." There was anger and yet confidence on her face. With an indignant look, she shouted, "Let go of the child, you vile creature!" But her confidence and her words did not scare the demon in any way. With a sharp swing of her axe, she finally dispersed the dust and smoke around her. Lowering her head, the demon looked at her and, smirking, said, "You're a pretty interesting little thing, but I don't remember ordering dessert. Well, never mind. The more food, the tastier the feast will be." With a sharp movement, the demon threw the poor boy aside, and he flew across the ground, hitting her. Suddenly, the demon swung around and shouted, "But first, let me teach you some manners." To this, the girl only closed her eyes and smirked. Suddenly her eyes opened, and with a sudden leap, she soared through the air like a bird. The demon didn't expect her to be so fast and was surprised. Flying close to the demon, the girl swung her axe hard and shouted, "Shut up and die!" Then, with all her might, she hit the demon with her axe, so that the dust around it rose into the air and hid the demon and the girl. The dust settled rather quickly and revealed the demon's disappointed face. It was obvious that he was surprised. The demon said, "What? So much insolence and rudeness, and not a single scratch you can't inflict on me." When the sore finally settled, it became apparent that the girl was lying on the ground face down and sighing heavily. With a sad and angry face, she said, "Damn it!" Now the demon was clearly calm and confident. He directed his hand towards the girl to grab her with the words, "Your self-confidence is worthy of a knight, but your strength is not enough anyway. Thanks for the treat." But as soon as his hand approached the girl, she disappeared as if at the speed of light. He didn't even notice anything. Suddenly, something with incredible speed swept by him, and his head flew off his torso and fell behind his body. The demon's face expressed complete bewilderment. He absolutely did not understand what happened and how his head was on the ground separated from the body. The whole place went silent, as if nothing had happened, and only the light sound of soles touching the ground could be heard. It was a beautiful blonde girl named Mary, wearing a black cloak and carrying a long but thin sword. The sun with its rays illuminated her, and the wind blew her hair. She was irresistible at that moment. Mary said, "Thank God I got here in time. Everything will be all right now." The severed demon head screamed, "Who the hell are you? What are you doing here? Are you looking for death?" Mary had a slight friendly smile on her face, and the sun was lighting up her face. She answered the demon, "I am a knight come for your soul." "Stop playing dumb," replied the demon. "You know perfectly well what this was about. First, you dare to interrupt my meal, and now you also damage my shell. How dare you?" The demon's body began to crunch and crack, and something began to pop out in place of the severed head. "I hate these pathetic warriors so much, you stupid commoners. You should know your place long ago, but you keep getting in our way." The demon grew to his full height. He was so big that his shadow completely covered the area around Mary. She stood quietly and watched the demon. She wondered what he would do next. Suddenly, the demon shouted, "You should be crushed like bugs!" The demon's hand was right above Mary. The hand was clenched into a fist and flew straight at Mary with incredible speed. The demon was beyond angry. The demon's fist was several times bigger than Mary, but Mary stood calmly as if nothing threatened her. But suddenly, Mary took a few sharp swings of her sword. The sword sliced through the demon's fist like air. Her gaze was determined, and she didn't hesitate for a second. The pieces of the demon scattered everywhere. With the power of miracles, people can so overcome human limits and overpower the strongest evil. Of course, only the strongest could become one of them. They're called knights, and of course, without these skills, you'll never be one of them in your life. A piece of the demon's head was lying on the ground and bewilderedly said, "What? What happened? What the hell?" Mary shouted, "Do you have any idea how worried I was? I told you not to attack demons. What are you going to do if you fail one day? What if I hadn't come to your rescue?" Magpie looked sadly at the ground and sighed heavily. It had been 9 years since Magpie had become a knight, fighting a lot of demons, and she would have liked to get her own miracle. But as usual, she couldn't do it, because such a gift is not given to everyone. The earth cleaning machine was making a lot of noise and clearing the battle site of all traces. The cleaners were communicating with each other. One of them said to the other with surprise, "Wow, she really destroyed it." Another asked, "Well, what about the other one? Just another simpleton hoping to get a mastery of a miracle is really reckless." The house behind them finally collapsed and raised a pile of dust into the air. Magpie said sadly, "I failed as usual," and looked towards Mary before saying, "Okay, I guess I'll stop trying." I said to Magpie, "I know exactly how sick you are of doing other people's work. It must be hard with a burden dragging you everywhere." Her face was filled with sadness. Mary asked, Why are you suddenly talking about this kind of thing? Am I doing something wrong to you? She was surprised and even a little confused. She didn't understand why she was hearing such words. No, said Magpie. I don't have the shamelessness to blame someone for their own weaknesses. She turned away abruptly and walked away. Hey, wait, cried Mary. Don't go. Explain what's wrong. I don't understand. Just stop making me feel even more miserable than I do now, Magpie said angrily. Mary didn't realize what was happening at all. The wind was ruffling her cloak, and her sword sat firmly in its scabbard in her hand. The setting sun illuminated her body. Magpie, she spoke softly one last time. A thin thread tied itself to her leg. Magpie was lying on the couch with a sad face and looking at the floor. Her apartment was a mess, just like her heart. There was a news channel on the television.
At about 5 p.m., one of the knights overpowered a rag demon. Thankfully, there were no casualties as it was quickly discovered and destroyed. Yes, that's right, an outright relief. The previous pace of life has slowly been getting better over the past decade, thanks to the exploits of valiant warriors. How fortunate that the world still has brave men and women willing to defend humanity.
Magpie was not happy to hear that. She was glad that no one was hurt and that the demon was finished, but she was sad that she had not helped in its destruction. Her eyes were closed, but full of sadness. And then she fell asleep and saw the demon druid again, looking right at her. Again she stands with a red flame in her hands, the wind ruffling her hair and shaking the crowns of trees. And again, demons, dead people sticking out of the ground and trying to get out. Again, a blast of fire consumes her body and burns her almost completely. But suddenly she woke up, her eyes open and sweat beading on her face. She was clearly terrified. Ah, the dream again. A nightmare where I sell my soul to the unclean and get a miracle in return. Oh, shit. What's the point of even trying? My own dreams give me no peace. They torment me every single day, thought Magpie. Her whole body was covered in sweat. She was clearly agitated and scared, and she was filled with anger. On the floor were scattered books with many bookmarks, one titled Demonology for the Advanced. The other was an incredible guide to becoming a knight in 66 days. She kicked the book with all her might, and a lot of bookmarks flew off. The other books flew with it. On the floor, Magpie noticed a picture. It showed her with her sister, Mary. She wondered, will I ever be like my sister? Will I be able to perform a miracle? There was a broken mirror in front of her, and she looked sadly at her reflection. Magpie decided to go to the store. It was a convenience store of 100 small things, said the store clerk kindly. Here, take this. Thank you for your purchase. Come again, said the store clerk kindly. Magpie came out of the store devastated and very sad. All the thoughts in her mind were only about Mary. She thought that Mary hadn't done anything wrong or bad, then she should go and apologize. Magpie walked to Mary's house and stopped at the door. Mary, are you home? She asked, but she heard nothing in reply. I'm coming in, said Magpie. Opening the door, in the dark room, she saw Mary standing upright and looking down. Her face was blank and expressed no emotion. In her hands, she held her katana. Said Magpie. I assume you've only recently returned. I wanted to apologize for what I said to you today. Come on, say something, or I'm only getting angry, shouted Magpie. But Mary didn't react at all, just looked at her with a devastated stare. Mary's blade suddenly cut through the air with lightning speed. Magpie barely managed to dodge it, but not completely, the sword hitting her leg. She was shocked by Mary's actions, her eyes filled with horror and incomprehension. Mary swiped Magpie's blood off her blade with a sharp motion. Oops, missed, Mary said. Her face was still as emotionless, but her eyes were black and her pupils glowed red. Now we have to go off script, said Mary. What the hell is wrong with you? Asked Magpie with horror. Drops of sweat were dripping off her face, and her eyes were clearly frightened. She didn't understand what was happening. You don't succeed no matter how hard you try, do you? Afraid of being nothing? Longing to be the hero of your own life? Don't worry. I can help, better than anyone else. Mary's face was still completely indifferent and calm. It seemed like it wasn't her speaking, but someone speaking instead of her. Hearing the last sentence, Magpie realized everything. Mary's mind and will were beyond her control. "Scumbag! What have you done to her?" screamed Magpie. Hands with strings taut were over Mary. The strings creaked, and it was with them that the demon controlled her. The demon stood behind Mary and asked, "You mean that night?" She finished off my favorite puppet. "Let's get acquainted. My name is Geppetto. I decided to give the girl a chance to atone for her previous transgressions and put on a performance that today is dedicated to a commoner trying to save a warrior enslaved to demons." Mary continued the demon's words. She said, "Only to die herself, at the hands of someone you want to be like, straight up a whole tragedy of humanity and its worthlessness." The demon pulled the strings and forced Mary to smile. Her eyes were blank, and her face expressed no emotion other than the threaded smile. The demon's body was as if sewn together from many small pieces. One of his eyes was dark, and the other light and bright red pupils glowed out of the darkness. Magpie just froze with horror. She was overwhelmed with anger and hatred. With a sudden movement, Magpie jumped out of her seat, swinging her axe with a shout, "Return her!" But her only thought at that moment was, if only I had gotten stronger, and the skills had awakened inside my body in a flash of eyes. Would I be able to save Mary? Mary thrust her blade forward and got into a fighting stance. Threads were strung all around her. Her face was still as unperturbed and her pupils glowing bright red. "Bring her back!" shouted Magpie again. "Alas!" the demon said nonchalantly and waved a hand with strings. With a sudden movement under the demon's control, Mary jumped forward. She seemed to vaporize. Many blows split Magpie's body. Her right hand flew aside, holding the axe. Her chest was bleeding. Well, of course, thought Magpie. The miracle wasn't born because it doesn't arise for everyone. Magpie's bloody body fell to the ground like a stone. Mary stood over her, and heavy tears of regret flowed from her empty black eyes. Deep inside, she realized what she had done, but she had no way to affect it. Magpie thought back to her childhood. "How long has it been since I dreamed of being a knight?" she asked herself. "When demons stole absolutely everything from me, leaving me alone." She remembered sitting in the mud, covering her eyes with her hands. She remembered how the savior warrior Mary had come to her rescue. Remembered Mary asking her, "Hey, Magpie, do you really want to fight monsters?" Magpie answered her, "Oh my God, how long are you going to keep asking? Isn't this desire illogical after being saved by a knight?" "Do you even have a miracle?" Mary asked with a smirk. "Without it, fighting demons is impossible." "I'll get another one in the future. There's plenty of time," Magpie replied irritably. "There really isn't a job like this where a person's life expectancy is so negligible and short," said Mary. "But you have plenty of strength," said Magpie. "Well, you have no idea how many times I've almost died," said Mary. "All the more reason, then. My idea is a good one," Magpie quipped. "I'll be able to get revenge on my abusers." "Wow, seriously, brave little girl," Mary teased her with a laugh. "What's so funny?" replied Magpie angrily. "I'm sorry," Mary said. "Is there really someone so valuable or something in need of protection?" "I wouldn't know," Magpie replied. "I have no idea what my parents looked like." "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked too much," Mary said. "Would you come here for a second?" "No, you get over here," Magpie said grudgingly. Mary went over to her and put a red scarf around her neck. "Red looks good on you," she said. "You're giving me a scarf?" Magpie asked. "Warriors do fight against demons all the time, but they are not mercenaries or hunters at all. For their duty is to support and sustain the others, and if a man doesn't have something important to him, there's no point in defense," Mary said in a kind voice. "I will be the guardian of your dreams, so let's start creating things you can cherish," she said with friendliness and a smile. Magpie was confused, but Mary's words moved her. They held hands sweetly and walked down the road littered with fall leaves. Magpie asked, "Did you get that scarf yourself?" "Yep. I've been up all night trying to steal every loop," Mary replied. "I don't really like it. It's too small, too hot, too tight around the neck," said Magpie. I see your immune system is weak. Just wear it now, and then I'll make you a new one, said Mary. Better tell me when we can start fencing training, asked Magpie excitedly. Yeah, right now at least, replied Mary cheerfully, if you let me be your sister. Okay, Magpie replied with a smile. Magpie's memories were over, and her severed, bloody hand lay on the floor, but suddenly a light pink flame appeared at its base. Suddenly her fist clenched and began to glow with a bright pink flame. Her shoulder began to burn with bright flames as well, as if gathering energy around her. Magpie's eyes filled with rage and turned red. With a sudden movement, her hand moved closer to the demon's head. He clearly hadn't expected this turn of events. His body flew sideways and through the wall of the house, flying out. What is this nonsense? The demon shouted. How? He asked in surprise. His body slumped to the ground and he barely raised himself to speak. Damn it! You're still not dead, and yet I stabbed your heart. You worthless, pathetic trash. Magpie stood and half of her body was shrouded in pink flames. She said in a confident and furious voice, Now I know the reason why the zeal to become a knight was born. The demon looked at her in bewilderment, and she said confidently, I hate it when they take what's mine. The demon's face went from surprise to an expression of indifference, and then a smirk appeared on his face, and he said, Interesting. A miracle, then. A sincere desire to protect your loved ones that ignites a miracle deep inside you, one that will destroy an evil demon in a single attack. That's the kind of happy ending you want, right? Magpie stood quietly and listened to the demon. No! Screamed the demon, tearing his clothes and flesh. In the script of a grand play, you can't change the ending once you get to the middle. From his chest, with 4 hideous hands, he pulled out huge, rusty scissors. The last tragic lines of this play will be dedicated to your worthlessness and guilt with grief. The storytelling options of children's fairy tales are not at all to my liking. The demon's mouth enlarged several times, and huge, sharp fangs protruded from his mouth. The horrible face was stretched with a smile, and he said, I will personally show you the true end of the story. But Magpie was still standing there, unperturbed by the flames. She moved her flame-covered hand aside, and expelling the air, an axe began to form in it. With a sharp swing, she pointed her huge axe towards the demon as he threw the huge scissors bound with his threads in her direction. Their blades crossed, and the demon shouted, Yes, art simply would not exist without adversity and hardship. My marionette show. But Magpie didn't agree with him. With a sharp motion, she chopped his scissors, and they were covered in fire and burned. Incredibly sizzled scissors into dust, I agree. This power is really impressive. Perhaps it is more interesting than the other knights who fell with me in battle, said the demon. It's a shame you're only getting it now. Thin and razor-sharp demon threads tied around every part of her body. They cut into her skin. And the demon said, If a little girl like you had more experience and knowledge of the battle, I swear our game would have reached the highest climax. But in the end, all of you together with the warriors and ordinary commoners would rather shake for your lives than for others, sweating, sticking up for each other. Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. Weaklings like you rallying together can't stand up to someone strong. Oh, don't bother, said the demon. My threads are now directly connected to your nerves, but I don't mind watching you scream in agony and break. But Magpie had other plans. Her body was becoming more and more covered in flames. With a sudden movement, she tore all the threads that enveloped her. The demon's eyes opened very wide, and he only had time to ask, What? He was very surprised and didn't expect it. Everything around her was covered in flames, so bright and hot that it seemed impossible to even breathe near her. Her body took on a frightening appearance from the fire. How did you do that? Screamed the demon. Why, curse! Nasty demon, how dare you spoil someone else's fun? What was the point of pretending to be human? Waste of time. Shut your mouth, Magpie shouted in a broken voice, and a huge stream of fire rained down on the demon. The demon's body quickly began to burn, and the demon screamed in agony. What's going on? Why is human fire so scalding? I'm so hot. Where could a child have gotten it from? I don't care, Magpie said. Even with my hands cut off, my heart stopped and my body turned to ashes. When I try to imagine Mary's feelings after killing me with her own hands, the pain is nothing compared to mine. "Wait!" the demon shouted in a pitiful voice. "Demons are immortal. No matter how much you try, it won't work. A small fire won't kill me." "Bullshit!" Magpie shouted angrily. "Just die!" The demon's body began to wriggle in pain in the flames. He was burning up completely, and a pitiful voice cried out, "Mercy!" But Magpie stood nonchalantly watching in the guise of a demon and shrouded in flames. 9 years. That's how long it took to achieve your dream, Mary remembered. And she also remembered how she had saved little Magpie and promised her to make her a knight, but it had ended up turning out to be torture. She remembered Magpie's lying and bloody body. "I'm sorry," whispered Mary. "If I had more strength, I would have been able to contain it and not let you die," Mary thought. She was enveloped by the demon. Her body was beyond her control, but her pain was so intense that tears were still breaking through. She remembered Magpie's little smiling face and remembered Magpie's words, bring back, my sister." Mary woke up, drops of sweat running down her face. She pulled herself up and heard a question. "Awake?" She looked up and saw Magpie. "I'm glad you look healthier," Magpie said. "So it's true, it wasn't a dream." "What about that fire?" Mary asked. "Damn, what a perfect memory. I should have hidden then. But now, knowing that you're okay, my heart is at ease. Good luck," Magpie replied and headed for the exit. Mary saw her hand and was puzzled, and she asked, "Hey, who are you? Human or your little sister?" replied Magpie calmly. But Mary didn't believe her and said, "Stop joking. Magpie is dead. I killed her," said Mary in a shaky and sad voice. Magpie had a scarf in her hands, or rather what was left of it. She showed it to Mary and said, "This scrap is the only part of the scarf that survived the fire. You instructed me to create things to treasure, but apparently I'm only capable of destroying things," Magpie said, frustrated. After those words, Mary realized it was her Magpie. She reached out her hand for the scarf and remembered the day she had given it to her. Tears flowed down her cheeks. She hugged Magpie tightly and said, "I told you I'd make another scarf." Sunset was approaching, and a meeting of the knights was taking place in the cathedral. "4 absent today?" one of the knights asked. "No, but we should be happy about the 8 contestants who showed up," replied the knight. "An ash demon has attacked the border area 5 times now. We must do something to prevent further attacks. Fighting him is an impossible task as long as there are 2 more opponents behind us. Let's start by raising our territory." The knights were talking among themselves. "I agree with a pale knight. We need to get this situation under control and at the same time maintain military power. This decision was made because of the low number of recruits. And why did you overestimate the recruitment requirements when you need to attract more people, Grandmaster of the Red Order? Demon power grows with devouring warrior wonders. Most are scum that don't fit our standards. They will simply become cannon fodder," replied the Grand Master. "I beg your pardon," the knight tapped his stick on the floor for attention. Regarding the current discussion, Raven, the sister of the knight in the suit, had defeated the unclean puppeteer. "Why not recognize her as one of us for their own good?" he asked. "The knight is a painter. The girl's name is actually Magpie." "Oh, right," replied the knight. "Investigators said she received a divot during the battle and successfully defended that soldier in the suit. Plus, being a cadet in the past, was a top student with a diligent academic record. Is such a trained person not enough? It is incomprehensible how the fool turned out to be a perfect match for the role of our comrade. Honestly, I did not expect something incredible from this simple girl." "Is the record stuck again?" the girl asked. "I just can't put it into words. You can't waste a talent like that, so we should knight Magpie before it's too late. Where is she now? Send her word." "Well, we don't know much about them." "A quiet night, a place far from the city. Urgently notify a knight in costume named Mary Christie Taylor and her sister to come to the great cathedral immediately." Read Mary's letter and said, "That's what it says," Mary said of the letter. "The authorities have finally noticed your efforts. It would be cool to throw a party, but—" Mary didn't finish, but they both understood the continuation of the sentence. Mary added, "Better to report you as missing in action. And let's put off training for a while until we figure out what's going on, unless you want to end up in a bad way," said Mary. Magpie just stood there and listened to everything Mary said to her, and at the end, she put her head down frustratedly and said, Okay. It's a painfully strange tone when loved ones show concern," Mary chimed in nonchalantly. I'd love a drink, but there's not a store around here," Magpie said. "Smoke and drink as much as you like, but be careful, I'll see you later," said Mary. "I'll see you later," Magpie said. But Mary never left, and Magpie looked at her and said, "It's stalled again, isn't it? That's why I keep talking about replacing my wreck with a decent car." But Mary answered nothing, and when Magpie looked at her more closely, she saw that Mary seemed frozen, and suddenly there was a strong wind, and the whole sky was covered with dark clouds. "What the hell is going on?" Magpie asked. A man appeared out of nowhere, and he asked, "Why don't you want to punish monsters with your fire? Wasn't that your dream, or have you already forgotten about it?" He opened his eyes, and they glowed bright blue. Magpie didn't understand what was going on, who this man was, or how he knew about her power. "Who are you, and what the hell are you talking about? You don't look very human," Magpie asked. "As you can see, I'm unclean," he answered. "Really? Just in time." Magpie replied and raised her hand, and her hand began to burn with pink flames. Then she added, "Fists have been itching to fight for a long time. Consider yourself dead." As soon as Magpie should have swung at him, she was enveloped by the tree. "I guess you just can't wait to learn more about your own miracle." The man replied calmly, then added, "I hope you notice that after using it, you want to climb the wall from pain. Don't abuse it as a toy," he said. "I'm not here to fight, but to remind you of our contract." Magpie just stood silent, shrouded in the branches, and listened. "There is no other diva who can slay demons but this fire. It has come down to you because of your sincere and deep desire. In the common people, it is simply called holy flame in front of the face of your heat. Any possessed person will perish from the world, just like people. But you too are just firewood. Any boost turns to a handful of ashes at the end. The all-devouring scorcher spares no one, not even the owner." He opened his eyes again, which were flaming blue. "Let's make it simple. I'm going to be turned to charcoal one day, so can I go sobbing into my pillow until I die?" Magpie asked angrily and snidely. He extended his index finger at her and said, "I want you to keep killing demons like you did back then to feed the flames, so—" Before he could finish his sentence, Magpie interrupted him and shouted, "Damn it! Why don't you just explain everything clearly? Without all the bullshit about righteous fire, contracts, and other nonsense. Just give me a straight answer. What happened to me? How many years do I have left to live? Look at the palm of your hand." Magpie looked at her hand and asked there, "Why?" Sweat was rolling down her face, and her eyes were shockingly open. "The number decreases when the sun goes down and increases when the unclean are destroyed." "Wait, are you kidding me? I have less than 3 years to live?" asked Magpie angrily. "Monsters roaming the streets may only buy you a couple of days, but I'm sure it won't help the situation much. So hunt the stronger ones, and don't try to reincarnate like last time. Otherwise, you'll waste your time again." "I think he's referring to the moment I saved Mary," Magpie thought, and told him, "Wait, is the date going backward again? Half of it's already burned off, and I was supposed to die at 24? You could have come up with a better story, asshole," screamed Magpie. He didn't say anything back. He just turned around and started walking away and said one last thing. "At least stop smoking." Magpie's breath caught, and then she shouted, "No way!" She looked at her hand with the numbers on it and screamed, "Shit!" Time continued to pass, and Mary was moving away from Magpie. Magpie ran after the car and yelled, "Mary, stop!" Mary stopped and said, "Did you forget your purse?" Magpie got in the car and said, "No, let's go to the Holy Lands." There was a whim to join the ranks of the knights. "And my words are like peas in a pod?" Mary asked, insinuating that she couldn't go. "I can lead the others before the irreparable happens. You saw how cool my superpower is now, right? I don't want to take responsibility for any further problems that may arise," said Mary. "Come on! You don't have to think about falling after the first steps you take," said Magpie. "You are hiding something from me, aren't you?" Mary asked incredulously. "No, it's just that if I chicken out now, my childhood dream won't come true," Magpie replied calmly. "Ha ha, well, I'm the last person you'd listen to, Mary said. They drove and talked the whole way. 314 days later, huge monster fangs terrified people trying to run for their lives. The monster was on fire and it was screaming, but it kept catching people. People ran in panic and screamed, "Demon, demon, demon!" The demon grabbed the Chelok and shouted joyfully, "First! Food! Recovery!" He held the man over his mouth and said to him, "I generally like to chew my food well with the bones, but I am in a hurry today, so I will swallow you whole. Quickly get into my mouth." He opened his mouth wide and pulled the man into his mouth, when suddenly, the powerful punch, the fire, the intense pain. It was Magpie who screamed furiously, "How did you dare? Flee!" She threw him aside with a powerful blow to the head. The impact was so strong that pink flames spread everywhere as if a huge bomb had exploded. Magpie landed on the ground and said, "Surrender and give up your soul, you vile fish-headed brat." By this point, she was already a Knight of the White Order. The demon's head was torn into small pieces, and in its place only pink flames burned. "Ah," said the demon. Suddenly the demon's neck ruptured, and a new head burst out of it, scattering fire with its appearance. "It hurts!" screamed the demon. It was an oodles of it, a drowning demon. Opening its mouth, the demon screamed, and a huge jet of water erupted from its mouth at an incredible pressure. The jet flew straight at Magpie, but she stood nonchalantly and did not move. The demon shouted. His attack hit the place where Magpie was standing. A mist of water and dust enveloped everything around. "Piss off," shouted the demon. "I was going to let you die painlessly," said Magpie. Her body was almost completely enveloped in pink flames, and she stepped out of that mist. "What?" the demon asked in surprise and fear. The fire was burning around her, and her face conveyed confidence and interest. The demon was really scared and didn't understand what was going on. "Why are we even fighting?" he shouted. "I'm your brother. You're a demon too." With a sudden movement of Magpie's hand, a huge flaming axe, which was like a scythe, appeared in her hands. "Shut your mouth!" she shouted furiously. "Stay away!" the demon shouted, and swung his huge webbed hand at her. Magpie struck her blow exactly in the center of the demon's arm, and it split in half. Then she delivered several more blows to the demon's body. Pieces of the demon were falling from the sky, and Magpie said, "Stop forgetting. You're just food to me."
"Yay, survivor," shouted the TV show host. "A miracle that can kill possessed people. You probably can't believe your ears, can you?" Not long ago, the number of demons in the eastern region dropped by 90%. A new warrior who can bake immortal creatures into dust has decided to protect us. Amazing! It's barely a year after she was knighted.
"There she is!" screamed the crowd of fans. "Did you see how the oodles of fish got blown to pieces? She's so strong. I'm no stranger to praise, but unfortunately I don't have time to bask in it." Magpie muttered gruffly to herself. The two guys were talking to each other, always fucking knights acting like they're great heroes, said one of them. The other only whimpered fearfully as he stood in the corner of the room. "There's no need to be afraid," continued the first one. "Everything will be fine, Damon." "But those skills," Damon said with a trembling voice, "right? It's like holy fire for sure. Those who stand hand in hand, listen up. Correct past mistakes, live sincerely in the present, and raise your head proudly into the future. The head of the order leads the knighting of Magpie. Step forward and kneel. Your honourable service and skills are worthy of recognition. Henceforth I dub you a knight. As such, take a sacred oath to fight demons in the name of the weak and innocent. Knight, remember, you are a shepherd among sheep. Let patience and restraint be your support, and humility and courage are a compass. Then you will be able to walk triumphantly through even the darkest path with a shepherd to guide you. Knight, remember, those who have claws and fangs must always respect justice. Remember, you are the fuel for the lamp that lights the world. Remember these words forever." Mary and Magpie were sitting in the Taste of the Sea restaurant with a variety of delicious food on their table. Magpie finished her drink and put the mug down loudly on the table, but her mind was on something else. She thought, since becoming a knight, I've been hunting demons for the past year, but it's unrealistic to keep going at this rate after all the monsters I've gotten my hands on have only added a couple of days to my life. What's that old man up to?" "Hey, remember our promise?" Mary asked. "We agreed to work together as much as possible and do our own thing as little as possible. But what are you going to do if you get caught and beaten for using the flame?" "Relax," said Magpie. "It's never been a problem before." "You're always in a hurry," Mary said. "It's like your head is being chased." Magpie said grumpily, "Geez, what are you bothering me for? Let's just eat." "You've changed a lot since you got the holy fire," Mary said. "It's like you've become a monster gone mad if you haven't killed the monster. Or are you having hallucinations that make you hunt them down? What is this nonsense?" Magpie thought angrily. She said, "Stop reading your weird internet articles. I just have a terrible aversion to them." Mary said, "I never thought my sister would eradicate all the undead in our area in a year. Your name is all over the news, and the public is shocked. Are you human?" No Magpie answered. A noise at a neighboring table interrupted their conversation. "Boss, what are you worried about?" One guy at the next table asked the other. "No reason. There's one thing that's really bothering me," said the other guy. "Is it because of the knights stopping by the bar? God, you're worrying about nothing. But now you can leave this backwoods fishing village and move to the city. Of all places, why did they have to come here?" he muttered angrily. But his friend shouted out, "It's okay. There's nothing suspicious going on. Let's do something else. I'd like to make a toast in honor of a mercenary named Phoenix who defended the settlement single-handedly. Boy, warriors," he thought strangely, and looked toward Magpie and Mary. "By the way," Mary said, "you like meat more than sashimi. Why did you invite me to this place?" "It's a good place to eat, but I'll tell you later," Magpie interrupted her. "Finding demons is a basic skill of a knight. There are many ways to detect a demon, such as gesticulation, speech, or the smell of blood. But mine is completely different. I wonder if I can do that because I've killed so many flesh-hungry demons, ruthless bastards," Magpie thought. The guy from the bar was walking quietly down a city street, thinking about the hunger choking him. Magpie was watching him from across the end of the street in the shadows. "Nasty bastard," Magpie thought as she looked at him. "He played the fool in the bar to fool those mercenaries. Though he looks smart, I won't be fooled, and once your hypocritical mask is destroyed, I'll bury you in hellfire." "What? What's wrong with him? It's been 3 hours and he's just walking around in circles in bare feet carrying boxes." "You're a very good helper," the man said to the boy. "It's nothing," he said. "Come back tomorrow, too." "Is he making money?" A guy went to buy an ice cream cone. "Give me one," he said to the clerk. "Chocolate?" the clerk asked. "Yes," said the boy. "It's the sweetest." The guy ate the ice cream and threw the paper in the trash. "Is this bastard really an ordinary person?" thought of Magpie watching him. "Even threw the trash in the trash can. No way. My demon detection skill developed a whole year of hunting, 100% error-free. No, he must be a monster beyond any doubt. Clearly, he will show his true nature quite soon." Suddenly, she heard a splash of water. Magpie and the boy turned toward the water. Someone had fallen into the water, and people were shouting, "Get help! Do something! He's going to be swept away by the current. How can we help from this height?" The crowd, standing by the pier and looking at the drowning boy, shouted in panic. "Oh, shit," said Magpie. Of course, saving that man was the right thing to do, for knights are not only punishers of the wicked. But if I get distracted, I'll miss the demon. When the monster makes a move, it never stops at a couple of victims. She remembered how demons had killed all her loved ones, remembered all the demons she'd defeated this year, the horrible doll monster, the monster with the scissors. "Yeah, I guess there's no choice," she thought. "This guy is more important. But what if my suspicions are wrong?" With a crunch, the boy's legs turned into demon legs. With a sudden movement, he leapt towards the boy who was drowning and pulled him out of the water. After rescuing the boy, Magpie caught the demon and said, "You shameless bastard! How dare you show up in broad daylight? You may have fooled the locals, but you can't fool me." The flames were already starting to burn around Magpie, and she was going to kill the boy. The demon guy lying on the floor answered about himself in the third person. The demon did not do anything. "Put away the flames. It is not time for the demon to die. His eyes were sincere and did not express any fear. Do you know about the flame? Magpie asked in surprise. It's a weapon that can destroy the demon holy fire, answered the boy. Then tell me, shouted Magpie, why did you rescue the child from the sea? Was your act spontaneous or intentional? The demon guy answered, because no one came forward. He's their fellow human, but the rest of the crowd just looked at him. I couldn't understand that and got upset. That's the reason I saved him. Are you kidding? Magpie asked in surprise. An unclean demon helped a simple man out of kindness. Do you think I believe such nonsense? What's the point of pretending to be mortal anyway? Phoenix Mercenary from the bar knows that Damon is a demon. He's human, but he protected Damon in a difficult moment when he was badly hurt in his natural form, hid my identity from everyone, and taught me about human behavior. Damon has a debt to repay. And Damon never ate people, so please leave me alone. I still want to live. Magpie looked at him angrily, but she put out the holy flame and said, For killing you, not even a day will be added to your sentence. Do you trust me? Damon asked. Magpie turned around and walked away and said, I'll just find out more about your phoenix, and it'll cost you more to take the creature's word for it if you lied to me about anything. You'll wish you were dead for the rest of your life. Under the starry night sky, Damon and Phoenix were talking. I see, said Phoenix. The night managed to catch you after all. I'm sorry, Damon said. Damon shouldn't have gotten involved in anything he shouldn't. Don't worry, said Phoenix. On the contrary, it's good that the boy didn't die. It means that the training has paid off. But anyway, I've prepared a boat for you. Now our paths are diverging. Not only you, but Sato and I are in danger too. You know what warriors do when it comes to monsters. These honorable and great knights will not listen to a mercenary like me. I have a question, Damon said. Damon has never understood something. Damon is a demon. Phoenix is human. We're completely different, so why did you help Damon out? Phoenix looked at him and answered thoughtfully. Well, it looked to me like you were in trouble, and even now, people often can't get past their neighbors who are in trouble. If that's the case, Damon said, Damon shouldn't run when Phoenix gets in trouble. Of course, Phoenix said with a smile. A day like this will come one day. It's so exciting, Damon said. Once when Magpie was a little girl, she asked Mary, All demons are bad, aren't they? I'm not entirely sure, Mary said in a friendly voice. What? Should a knight say something like that? Magpie asked in surprise. I really have no idea, replied Mary. I'm still a beginner after all, so I don't know the whole picture. So there are good demons too? Magpie asked in surprise. Not everyone is decent, right? Mary asked in a friendly tone. Well, do your words apply to unclean people too? Magpie shouted out in surprise. Mary replied, I just mean that there is such a possibility. We know a lot less about demons than we think we do. Have you ever met a good demon? Magpie asked. I guess. Yeah, he seemed okay, Mary replied. In the books, they're described as horrible monsters that mercilessly devour people, Magpie said. Instead of believing a book written by an unknown person, you'd better try relying on your own eyes, Mary said kindly. Magpie pondered. I thought I would learn more facts about them as time passed. However, after becoming a knight, the demons that got in the way usually turned out to be disgusting monsters that terrorized villages and cities, smug, cowardly, and treacherous. Disgusting scum, only trampling on other people's happiness. Magpie's fist clenched with anger. Even after hiding my own identity and pretending to be one of the citizens, there is an obvious difference between real humans and demons. But now, thinking about this reason, who am I then? What exactly have I turned into? Never mind, Magpie said, getting out of bed. I need some fresh air. Damon stood on the boat with a sad face. I guess we'll never see each other again from tomorrow, the boat captain said. We owe you a lot, he said. Yes, Damon replied. It's mutual. With your great power, you have done all the things we can't do, said the boat captain. A lot of footsteps were heard nearby. There was always a certain fear of you inside, the captain continued, and someone explained why. You're not just a simpleton, the captain said harshly. At that moment, Damon began to suspect something wrong and looked into the captain's eyes. "You're the devil's spawn," the boat captain said, pointing his gun at Damon. Damon was just frustrated and sad. He didn't know what was going on. "Captain," he asked in a shaky and confused voice. But the captain didn't listen to him. He just pulled the trigger and a loud shot rang out across the street. Many bullets pierced Damon's body. They hurt him, but he stood there, not realizing what was happening. What was happening? He thought. Humans don't hunt their own kind, do they? The gunshots continued to rumble, and the bullets hit Damon's body. Damon didn't seem like a demon to them. Why had they done this? The sadness and pain of betrayal was tearing him up inside. Smoke was rising from the muzzle of the captain's gun. "Phew," he said. "Sorry about that. We fear knights, too." As Damon's wounded body lay on the floor, the captain spoke. "If the knights find out about the impostor living among us, there will be nothing left of the village but embers, so we'll turn you over to them. After all, you're an impostor. There's nothing wrong with that, nothing at all. Everything goes back to the way it was. Now that we're done, hurry up and call the drivers." "What about a guy named Phoenix?" "Forget it," the other man answered. Is that it? Damon thought, lying in his own blood on the floor. He remembered rescuing a drowning boy, remembered pulling him out of the water, how the boy coughed, and how he smilingly told him, "Thank you so much for saving me." Damon thought he was slowly humanizing himself, but what was the point of all this pretending? "I guess I'm just imagining it," he thought. "You're right," Damon said. He stood up, and his whole body was bleeding. The captain of the ship was startled and looked at him. They stood opposite each other. "You ugly, worthless trash!" shouted the captain, and pointed his gun at him. The captain pulled the trigger, but there were no bullets in the gun. Oh, shit. Damon's body transformed, and he rose up as a demon. There was a man nearby. Terrible. What's that rumbling in the middle of the night? He thought. Not a day goes by without commotion in this city. Suddenly he saw blood on the ground, and he was startled. Damon stood in the guise of a demon. "Oh no, demon," screamed the man. Magpie suddenly appeared and said, "I really am a fool for taking your game seriously back then." The flames were starting to flare up around her, and she said, "Have you completely forgotten my words? I told you you'd be sorry for trying to survive." Magpie and Damon stood across from each other. Magpie said, "I see you've caused quite a stir. How was your first meal? I assume fine and proper." She was looking at Damon's hand, which was covered in blood. "There's no other explanation for why you would kill those people. I've punished a lot of different demons, but I've been completely deceived because I've never met anyone like you. I pity the innocent fallen at your hands, but at least now I have a clear answer. All evil must be killed, no exceptions. Forever." Magpie created her fire axe in her right hand and attacked Damon with a swift motion. "Damon doesn't have time for this kind of thing," he said, and it was like he vanished into thin air. Magpie's axe went right through where Damon was standing, but he was gone. "Did I miss it?" Magpie thought. "I'm pretty sure I was aiming for his head. What a freak. He's pretty good. He seemed like a regular, flimsy, scrap metal demon. Who the hell are you, then?" Damon pushed off his leg hard and tried to run away so he wouldn't have to fight Magpie. "Hey, you!" Magpie shouted. "Don't you dare run away. If you risk running away, those two idiots you were hanging out with earlier will die," said Magpie angrily. Suddenly, Damon stopped. His eyes filled with anger and rage. He turned and asked, "What did you do to my friends?" "What do you think?" Magpie asked. Damon was incredibly enraged by the words she said. He looked at her as if he were ready to destroy her. Damon lunged at Magpie and punched her in the stomach with all his might, punching her through. The spikes from his hand pierced her body, and blood splattered on the ground. Blood dripped from Magpie's mouth. But suddenly she smiled and said, "Gotcha, you dirty little bastard." With a lightning-fast movement, Magpie's flaming axe plunged into Damon's shoulder. "There's no point in worrying about your accomplices now, for you are first in line for execution," Magpie said. The axe chopped him from shoulder to chest, covering his body with holy flames. "No," Damon said, and grabbed the axe. "Damon has to protect his friends," he said. With a cry of "back off," Damon snapped the axe in half and with a strong kick of his foot threw Magpie aside. "Scared of looking at the face of your death?" Magpie asked. There was a smile on her face. "My fire will burn your shell to embers if you don't put it out," she continued. There was a genius who jumped into the water after hearing this, but in the end, only his ashes surfaced. I may be saying the obvious thing now, but you can expect no salvation. For living a lie, for the people you've devoured, and the violence you've committed, fate will punish you. Go to hell. Those words hurt Damon's heart. He didn't understand why he'd said them. Damon remembered how he'd saved the boy, how the boy had told him, "Thank you so much." He remembered how he'd told Phoenix that he wanted to be like him, and Phoenix had told him that such a day would surely come one day. Damon's teeth clenched and gritted with anger. He screamed furiously and his body began to change. Magpie didn't realize what was going on and just stared at him. "What the hell?" she asked. Damon became a huge monster, and Magpie just stood there staring at him. "Oh, shit," she said uncertainly. He hit her with all his might, and she was thrown so that she flew at a tremendous speed, breaking houses and walls with her body. Meanwhile, Mary was looking for Magpie. "Oh my God, where the hell is she?" Mary said. "I hope she's not walking around causing mayhem again." "What?" said Mary, frightened. She saw Magpie's bloody body lying on the ground. "What happened is too unreal, isn't it?" she asked confusedly. Phoenix stood nearby, exhaling smoke. "You're just in time. I was expecting you," he said. "Knight Mary Christie Taylor. The villagers, like the girl who uses the holy flame, are mutilated by a demon. What are you going to do about it? I can help with the evacuation of the civilians." "There is only one option for a warrior," Mary said, drawing her sword. "To destroy the enemy, and do justice by condemning the sinner." Phoenix smiled and laughed loudly. "Do you really think you have the strength? A sinner, you say?" Phoenix asked. "Too cruel. We did harbor a demon, but we were deceived by him too, for he looked and acted like a human. I was the one who defended this village from the oodles of oodles. You know that, don't you? You're seriously going to point a gun at an innocent man right now?" "Exactly," Phoenix said. "When it comes to demons, you knights don't understand what is good and what is bad. Why don't you just look at the situation with common sense? I've heard that the famed warrior in the suit is barely able to use her own miracles after defeat. Isn't keeping that title a credit to the Knight of the Holy Flame? Yet she's dead, and her fire is gone. Do you really think you can do something about that screwed-up miracle of yours? You really think you can mop up some kind of condemnation or destruction?" "Huh," Mary snorted. "You smell of metal and blood. I guess you're a swordsman, too. Let's just get to the point, okay? I don't like wasting time on garbage." Mary's words clearly irritated Phoenix. He smiled and said, "Only if you want to die quickly." Damon, in the guise of a huge demon covered in fire, looked up and remembered how he'd been taught to be human. His eyes were filled with sadness. "It's a dog," Sato said, and pointed his finger at the picture in the book. "Meat," Damon said, lying on the floor. "Hey, spell it out." "You should at least learn to read and write," Sato shouted. "Damon is hungry and wants to eat all the meat," Damon said grudgingly. "No food until you start communicating properly, asshole," said Sato. Sato was holding the chopsticks and showing Damon how to hold them properly, but Damon didn't listen and just poked the food on the chopsticks. He was acting like a little kid. "Stop doing nonsense, please," Sato said to Phoenix. "We are monster hunters meaning to look out for one of them. If we get caught by the knights, we'll be in trouble." Phoenix replied, "But I'll try to get used to it anyway. Those are my orders. Damon is a demon of luck." "Hey, stop fooling around and listen," said Sato. "I'm dead serious," Phoenix replied. Sato came into Damon's room and said, "I see you woke up earlier than usual today." Sato turned to him. "Damon, I bought that delicious stuff you showed me last time. It smells good," Sato said. "I got two, so I'm giving you one," said Damon. Damon and Sato were lying on their mattresses. "Hey, are you asleep?" Sato asked. "Our species doesn't need that kind of sleep," Damon answered. "So you're always awake?" Sato asked. A long time ago, Damon slept, a lot, I forget the exact date, Damon answered. It was before he met Phoenix and Sato. When you fall into a dream, images flashed in your mind's eye. Damon only saw fire, so he didn't like it. Sato keeps a regimen every day. Do you see anything good? Damon asked. Phoenix said he only has a black background in front of his face. I didn't dream about anything until recently either, Sato said. After I left home, I started training and eventually became a mercenary. I hated poverty and almost died in the past, but the boss took me in, even though he said I could do it on my own. That's why I have no family, no love, no happy memories. A couple of weeks ago, I started seeing things because I made a friend. Damon didn't expect to hear that. He didn't think he could be a friend to anyone. I'm going to try to take a nap tonight too, Damon said. Why all of a sudden? Sato asked. This time Damon would probably be able to see something else too, Damon said. Before meeting Mary Phoenix and Sato stood by the water and talked. What do you mean? What do you mean? Sato shouted out. The knights are here, said Phoenix Sato. We are hunters who destroy evil. Our job is to kill medium-sized demons, hand them over to the knights and get paid. In fact, we're butchers. Most demons don't use their own brains, for they are immortal and stupid as boots. If you relax, they'll start coming from everywhere again. That's why the villagers regularly give money in exchange for protection. However, the holy fire warrior burned the most powerful oodles of fire. That scared away all the other weaklings, who will stay away from here from now on. At this rate, we'll soon be afraid of starvation, not demons. Luckily, though, for the moment we have Crutch, who is a monster, who is not far removed from the humans. Revealing his true colors will make him a wolf among sheep. Is it really the boss? Sato shrieked fearfully. Are you planning to sick the Order of Holy Knights on Damon? Exactly, Phoenix replied. He'll probably kill every guard before he dies. Then all we have to do is free the unfortunate man from his torment, an opportunity that doesn't come along very often. We will be the saviors who defeated a demon that even the great knights could not defeat. Or we'll be stuck forever as butchers chopping up pigs and cows. Sato was shocked by Phoenix's words. He didn't want to kill Damon. Chief, Sato said, but Damon isn't livestock. I guess there's no other choice, Phoenix said, and slashed Sato's neck in a sharp motion. Sato was shocked, but couldn't say anything. Caution is paramount, Phoenix said. As I mentioned, he's a demon of fortune. Fortune doesn't smile on fools, said Phoenix. Sir, Sato wheezed. Don't worry. I'll let the boys know that you tragically fell in a fight with the monster, Phoenix said. You will be buried in a better place. I hope in your next life you'll finally wise up. Phoenix looked at Mary and remembered the situation. His thoughts were, the dead don't talk, so there are zero problems. In any case, I didn't expect to find common ground with a knight so easily. Even if she knows what I did, the bottom line is to finish her off quickly. Humans are just a bunch of cretins, he shouted as he drew his blazing sword from its sheath. His sword was burning with red flames, and he was ready to attack Mary.